Hello again, Struck. Today I'm bringing you another build video for Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and this one is my Angry Spins 2.0, the spin-to-win evolution of my theory crafted setup before the game launched. This time I know about items and synergies between items and skills, and that's the final setup of the Angry Spins. Well, not final, but that's the full setup of the Angry Spins. I'm kind of disappointed because I was expecting more from the spin-to-win Dreadwind skill and from melee in general. Maybe I'm missing something important. Maybe I need to use glitches and bugs to get more damage out of it, but as a legit Brr-zerker+Stabbomancer, I was expecting more, but it's still okay. It's not a bad setup. It's not top tier, let's put it that way. But nevertheless, still some people would enjoy it, so here it is, and buckle up and I hope you like it. As usual, let's start with the skill trees. As you can see, Brr-zerker+Stabbomancer as I mentioned, and ideally I wanted to build around Dreadwind. The thing is, Dreadwind benefits from various things, such as melee damage, frost damage, and ability damage. But the thing is, from melee and frost stacking it doesn't seem to be enough. Maybe some ability damage is needed. And maybe Stabbomancer is not the right subclass to build around Dreadwind. I thought the synergy of dealing more damage as you move faster would work, but it doesn't seem to work well. So most likely I'll experiment with other subclasses, and maybe the 3.0 version would be with a different subclass. But I wanted to try and stick to the original subclass I picked for this. So here we take the frost damage. Keep in mind I played around with the tree. I tried a bunch of different things. In the description there should be two different sets of skills. This one and another one that was using blast, chill and contagion. So for this one, max frost damage, max melee damage and regeneration, maxed out the old ways for bonus damage and damage reduction depending on how close you're to the enemy. Icebreaker I decided to max out this time for extra damage to Sword. The extra damage to Frozen, it's rarely gonna happen for us to freeze an enemy before they're dead, but the extra damage to Sword will help, especially on bosses. And armor defense 1 point, I like this one. If you don't like it, sure, don't put it. Cold Snap I like. If you think you don't want this much movement speed and frost efficiency, then obviously you can put those points either here in the kill skill or here for maximum HP and area damage. I do believe area damage will buff Dreadwind. I cannot confirm it, but I think it does. And you can get up to 25% extra here and another 20% HP, so this is a good alternative if you don't feel like going Stabbomancer. 1 point into Relentless Rage I think really helps, especially when you solo, so I would suggest getting that. And on the other setup I have 5 points here, but on this setup I decided, okay, let's reduce the fire rate and melee attack speed so I can max out that skill. Otherwise, because I took the point here and the 1 point I had here and I put them there. And putting 4 points here, that's enough to get us this one. In fact, maybe you can even put 3 points here and that should still be enough to get you Blood of the Fallen. Here melee spell gun damage, straight up. Then here we have melee attack speed, movement speed, and whenever we cast a spell, the bonus is doubled for a duration, which is 12 seconds, so keep that in mind. This is not bad and we'll be using our spell often. That's why I invested some points into spell cooldown. Then Swift Death. This is a build around me skill while moving. Stressing out while moving. The Fate Maker gains increased damage dealt. The faster you move, the greater those bonuses. And at 5 plus 2 levels, 5 maxed out and 2 from the mod, from the armor, that's 14%. At 1 level I think it's 10%, so something like that at default walk speed. But again, you need to be moving, and that's not that great of a synergy for melee, because most of the time when you're moving you stop. I think with this one, even if you put a point here, it's still gonna be difficult to move around a target while meleeing. Sure, you can walk in circles around them. I've tried it. It works, but it's super super weird and awkward to play that way, and you could put points there. And yeah, this one is nice because as you're doing damage to the enemy, you'll be applying different status effects, and for every status effect you apply, that's 6% damage increase, so you can get 30% from this one if you apply 5 different status effects. This is 2% per level. If you think you don't want this extra damage and that you won't be triggering it as much, maybe remove those 3 points and put them elsewhere, such as here maybe. And maybe you might want reload speed if you want to do more gun damage. But if you want to do more gun damage oriented build, you're better off using Executioner's Blade. And obviously Ghost Blade is the best melee skill. When I was testing, I found that Dreadwind is not worth it when you can consider Ghost Blade. But since this was a spin2win build and I wanted the evolution of the spin2win build to obviously still be spin2win, that's why I took that. So in terms of stats, max out attunement for skill cooldown, max out constitution for survivability, and the rest put into spell cooldown, into intelligence. If you think it's fine, the amount of intelligence you've got, then okay, then put it into strength. It's up to you how to do that. In terms of items, every build needs a good liquid cooling. This is not a good liquid cooling, by the way. What you want in a liquid cooling is on the damage to say x2 times 2, so 2 shots per click, per tick. Liquid cooling, the metal weapon, the strongest weapon, and it goes very well with frost builds on a Brr-zerker, pretty solid. Another good weapon, Queen's Cry. Obviously you won't be using guns much, but having those two would be nice. And ideally having something that's not frost in cases when the enemies are immune to frost could work. But you would need guns for some of those ranged enemies. Keep that in mind. So pick some weapons. I think the imp fire Skulldugger assault rifle is also good. For dealing with fire enemies and for dealing with flying enemies and enemies that are immune to cold as well. Even though it might not be the best, it's still a decent one. In terms of melee weapon, there are many that I've tried. Twin Saw is good. It heals your HP, but it also heals your maximum ward, which fucks up the Cursed Wit shield. So if you're using the Cursed Wit, the HP healing is nice, but the ward healing is not, and it fucks up that extra bonus damage you can get. The frying pan is amazing, and you might want to use it every now and then. A good frying pan could go a long way. What I really love, my favorite weapon has been the Ragnarok. A Ragnarok is a good weapon. I wish instead of warrior it had vampire. So I can play non-cursed wit builds with it properly, but with the cursed wit build it goes well. It has some ranged attacks which are kind of underwhelming, but it's still extra range on a melee weapon, so it's fine. And yeah, I think you should try a Ragnarok if you have a good one. Diamond Guard is very good for synergy with exploit their weakness. If you want to build up status effects on an enemy, a Diamond Guard goes a long way. Peglegs, they also go a long way because they give you movement speed and they synergize very well with Swift Death. But again, for Swift Death you have to move to do that extra bonus damage, so you have to be walking in circles around the enemy, and I'm not sure if that's the way you wanna play it. But a good Pegleg will be cool. Storm Surge is interesting and fun, but again, the biggest problem with the Dreadwind is it doesn't proc melee triggers. So it does melee damage based on the equipped melee weapon, but the problem with that Dreadwind is, you see here where it says Vampire, Caustic, Pegleg, Ancient, all those procs triggers of weapons don't happen when you're using Dreadwind, and in my opinion it should. In my opinion, every 0.35 seconds when Dreadwind ticks damage, it should also trigger things like Diamond Guard, things like Storm Surge, things like Warrior, for it to be worth it. Right now I cannot recommend playing spin2win, but if you want to play spin2win, that's why I made that setup for those people who want to. The Wailing Banshee has a ton of damage but very low attack speed, so it might not be good for everyone, but the Echo is interesting. And Echo is interesting for builds that want to be more hybrid. So if you go Executioner's Blade, that might be a very good weapon to equip, where you focus more on gun damage and just trigger melee hits from Ethereal Blades and stuff like that. What else? I think I talked about all the weapons I tried that I think are worth testing. In terms of shields, Cursed Wit. A good Cursed Wit can go a long way. More about enchantments at the end of this. I'll list them on the screen so you can pause the video and see them to save time. A good Cursed Wit, ideally not with Water Generation, but something like on knockback all enemies on Warbreak, something else, something that's not helping you regenerate shield, because you want to keep the shield down to get that 100% damage and 17 reduction. The 100% damage you don't get right away while ward is depleted. It happens gradually over time, so you want to keep that ward down for as long as possible. For rings, needless to say, you need pummeling rings. Pummeling means with melee damage at the top. What you would want, there are different bases. Thumb Cuffs is fine, Mood Ring is fine, something that doesn't require your ward to be full. Ideally when the ward is not full, when your HP is full, when your HP is 50% or under 50%. I like Champion Rings. I like Champion Rings because it's the one that gives you extra damage to bosses. When you do damage to bosses, it increases the effects. That's the one. I like that. I like the Championship Ring. I also like Thumb Cuffs, but anything is fine except Finger Ward, because you don't want your ward to be full, and that means you don't want to be triggering this effect there. But Championship or Thumb Cuffs, in my opinion, are a great thing to do. While Action Skill is ready, effects increased, I would avoid this. But yeah, just look for bonuses to melee crit hit chance, Action Skill duration, Action Skill cooldown, melee crit hit damage, things like those. They would be nice for stats there. As an armor, I like the Diamond Gauntlets. But the Diamond Gauntlets is counterintuitive to Swift Death. It requires you to be standing still, whereas Swift Death requires you to be moving. So I don't know, maybe you might look into some purple armor that increases the following skills. Skills that, if you want to go moving damage, this is good, and this is good. Those three are good for a Swift Death setup. But if you feel like, okay, Swift Death is not what I want to build around, then you might as well change from Stabbomancer to a different class. But you might want to find something that puts point into Arsenal, something that puts point into Savagery, something that puts point into Ancestral Frost, Icebreaker. That's gonna be a good thing. If you find something that puts point into Iron Squall, okay, not bad. It could be better, but not bad. And if you wanna go for exploit their weakness setup, maybe find something that puts point into this. Another armor you can try is the Cursed Paradigm. Not the Cursed Paradigm, the Warped Paradigm. The problem with the Warped Paradigm is the bonuses to skills it gives. It doesn't give bonuses to the right skills. Maybe 2 out of the 3 skills are okay, but what I like is melee damage and ability damage are increased by 50% of your increased spell damage, and this synergizes well with putting points into Nimble Fingers, but it boosts this skill, which you definitely don't really want unless you're going for a hybrid build. It also boosts this, which is not bad, and it also boosts this for faster melee attacks, although fire rate as well. Another good armor you could consider is the Corrupted Plate Mail. But I don't have one for Brr-zerker, so again, it's good if you want some extra survivability and dark damage. Converting 30% of your frost and every other type of damage into dark damage and increasing the dark magic efficiency will work well. but I'm not sure how the BrRrRR version is of that one. If you know it, please feel free to share the information of which BrRrRR skill gets boosted by a corrupted plate mail that has a BrRrRR main class or subclass. The good thing about it is that it boosts this skill, and this skill is for every point in there, that's 25 stacks of 0.2% damage. And critical hitting increase that, and melee crits add additional stack to that. And since you're a Stabbomancer subclass with this setup, that's gonna work nicely. So yeah, if you find a corrupted plate mail, you might want to try using it. I think it would be a good synergy, especially considering I'm using a dark damage Buffmeister. And speaking of Buffmeister, that's the spell I chose. You might want to try something else, like the one that does AoE around you and pulls enemies closer, or something like a Marshmallow for healing. It's just my only volatile Buffmeister, and it thankfully is a dark damage one. On that one you want spell cooldown as least as possible cooldown, the lowest possible cooldown. Ideally higher spell damage as well, over 200 will be amazing. And for the amulet, I would suggest something with action skill cooldown rate. I found this a very nice sacrificial skip that gives me 46% action skill cooldown rate. You want frost damage, you want BrRrRR power, and that's what you want. And now I'll show you the enchantments, but in general for enchantments you should be seeing them on the screen. Try to get things on spellcast, on action skill start, on action skill end, while action skill is active. Things that give you melee damage, and try to get different ones. See, this one cannot stack with the same one. So if your shield has the exact same thing, on action skill start increase melee damage by 40% for 10 seconds, obviously try to change one of them. Make sure that your guns don't have the same enchantment as your melee, shield or spell. And if you have different ones on each of them, this will be nice. Melee damage is good, frost damage stacking is good, dark magic stacking is good if you're using a cursed plate mail, and ability damage is also nice. Whether it's on spellcast, whether it's while action skill starts, on action skill start while action skill is active, and so on, it's up to you to choose which one works better with the way you play the setup. For the mid ranks, obviously once you reach level 400 you would have maxed out this and this side of the skill tree, and you would only have points to put into the final ones of each tree. And this is to be expected. This is how it will be expected for the trees to be. But before that, put points into things you feel would be useful. I would say attunement, which was here for cooldown. Prioritize this. I would prioritize frost damage, which is here. I would prioritize intelligence for spell cooldown, which is here. I would prioritize things like strength and constitution, as well as melee swing speed, and obviously melee crit damage. Since you're a Stabbomancer, maybe not putting points into crit chance right away would be fine. Dark magic damage would be nice, especially if using a corrupted plate mail. What else would be good to prioritize? Dex, again, you can skip the Dex for a while and maybe put points into movement speed and then get Dex later. Gun handling shouldn't be a high priority, but if you feel you need it, to get it, but reload speed should be a priority before fire rate and maybe before magazine size. But yeah, just figure out what you need more. I think you need the most cooldown for your action skill, for your spell, crit damages, HP and ward increases, things like that, and melee swing speed and crit damage before you start putting points into the ones. Obviously eventually everyone will be over level 400 mid and start putting points all the way for those final things. I'm not sure what the max mid rank is, but judging by this is like 1/3 of it. Maybe it's 1200 that the maximum is, which means that's a lot of points. Or maybe this is just my experience of the current level, but in any case if this is 400 and this is 800 and this is 1200, that's a lot of points you would end up putting into melee spell ability and gun damage. To get notified when I upload more content like this one or other builds and guides for Wooter and not so Wooter games, you can subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to not miss out on notifications. As well as keep in mind there's something called memberships on YouTube, which lets you be a paying member for my channel to get access to perks such as emotes and badges made by me, as well as the option to get one-on-one tutoring for the very basics of Adobe Photoshop, Premiere and After Effects. And memberships can be cancelled at any time if you no longer wanna be a member. Thanks for watching all the way until the end, Struck Up, keep it cool until next time and goodbye.